Welcome again, everybody, and thank you for joining our global webinar day here at Infosim. Our topic today is Expert Level Fault Management, a hands-on session with our CTO. My name is Dietmar Kneidl, Director of Sales Europe with Infosim, and I will be your moderator for today's event. Joining us from our headquarter office here in Würzburg, Germany is our CTO and also a founding member of Infosim, Marius Heuler. Marius is responsible for leading our tech teams in architecting, developing and delivering StableNet. He's also a graduate from the University of Würzburg with a degree in computer sciences, holds a number of Cisco certification and has, of course, subject matter expert knowledge in various programming languages, databases, and of course protocol standards. Prior to founding Infosim, Marius held network management leadership positions and performed project work for companies like Siemens, AOK Bavaria, and Vodafone. So, good afternoon, Marius. Welcome to our global webinar day.
Yeah, hello Dietmar and hello to the audience. Here's Marius.
Well, it is your second time with us, and so thanks again for taking the time to do this. We all know you're quite busy, so this makes you taking the microphone today even more special. Well, before I hand over things to Marius, just a couple of items I would like to inform you about. First off, all of you are automatically muted just to keep down the background noise. So for us to be able to see and answer your questions, you please need to type them in the questions window or the chat window at the bottom of the GoToWebinar application. I'm sure you've found that by now. As usual, we'll be taking care of all your questions either directly in the chat during the webinar or at the end in our Q&A session. So don't hold back. Let us know if you have a question or remark at any time. We're happy to help and answer those. Also, please be aware this event is being recorded, so we're going to send you a quick email tomorrow on how to access that recording. Well, that's basically all household items from my end so far, so I would like to go ahead, hand over control to our presenter, Marius Heuler. Marius, you ready?
Yes, of course I'm ready. So let's start the webinar. First, I have a short introduction about the webinar, and I want to show you what are the objectives of my webinar. The first objective and the main one, of course, is we want to show frequently asked use cases of our customers or partners. So we got some queries about how we can do alarm escalation, how we could monitor jobs, and how we can do other things I will disclose later in the webinar. And the second important objective is also how you can use our StableNet APIs to add additional value to your company, or if you are a partner, to your customers. So everything I'm showing right now in this webinar uses the officially documented APIs, like the REST API or our scripting engine, and that meaning anybody could implement the same thing if he has a StableNet installation and the required license modules. And one objective is also that we want to encourage our customers and especially our partners to do special solutions, use cases for their customers using our APIs we provide. And there's something upcoming in that area. That's I give over to Dietmar. He has to disclose something which we are planning in that area. Dietmar?
Well, just as a heads up kind of thing, in order to make the things we're going to show today, the things Marius is going to demonstrate, use cases he's going to show, to make those more appealing and more interesting to all of you, we will offer 2 free workshop webinars for customers and partners who are interested to implement these or similar use cases using the techniques shown today, just a heads up, we're going to announce that again at the end of the webinar. We have a customer webinar on June 9th and a partner webinar on June 7th. So both of these will be interactive 2-hour workshops with our development guys. Space is limited to 10 participants, so please contact us. We'll provide you with some contact details later on, and let us know if you're interested, and we will send you some more information. And this workshop is specifically tailored, to address individual needs and questions, and so not just a webinar as this one. So that's going to be like an interactive workshop.
Okay, thank you, Dietmar, for that information. And for my webinars, when I present webinars, I always want to include something new meaning something which has not been shown to the public of StableNet, so something usually not known very well or not known at all. And I have one surprise, one more thing coming as a third use case of this webinar. The second slide I want to show you before going to the live demos of the use cases is which APIs are used. The main API used here is our REST API, which provides all the information shown. Then the implementation is made in Java as a business module or a script. And to distribute this information, our measurement tree, we use our external measurement concept, which we also use for integration of all element managers. And we use the new DRG module or DRG concept to create individual alarms to make seeing like the escalated alarms easier. And what is really new is that you can also use DRG in business modules or in our scripts. And everything is based on StableNet 7.5. So you need the 7.5 version. If you have it, you can do all these things shown. Okay, let's go to the first use case. It's about Open Alarm Escalation. We already had some script doing similar things, which had some limitations. So what I will present today is a much enhanced version of Open Alarm Escalation using our modern APIs like REST to provide better usage and better information for our customers. Alarm escalation, all know, is important. You have SLAs with your customers. Alarm escalation means if one alarm, one problem, one ticket is open too long, exceeding the threshold of your defined SLA, may be internal SLA or with the customer, you need to be informed. So you escalate to the manager of the NOC or some C-level people if it's an important customer or an important outage. And that means since you have different SLA for different customers, you also need to have ways of filtering, configuring the alarm escalation. And what's very important, the escalated alarms must be really easily viewable. You need a new alarm which you can assign to another person, like an extra resource, or send the alarm email to a different audience than the original NOC personnel, for example, to escalate it really. And depending on how you use your alarm system, you may use the acknowledgement, so you may acknowledge open alarms to mark them being worked on. You may also use a ticket integration, so your alarm or your open alarms may depend on creation of a ticket or not. That means you also need to be able to filter on fields like ticket status or ticket number. Okay, that's the main script, and I now switch to the live demo. The main webinar is everything done live. I only have slides to show the use cases and then always change to the live demonstration. Okay, now we are in the measurement tree. You see here my 3 use cases. I show you the configuration of this Open Alarm script. And the first thing you notice are parameters to access the server. All scripts in this example use the REST API. That means we need to supply information like IP address, port, username and password to access our web interface. Depending on the username and the access rights of that user, you also can just monitor or escalate alarms of a given user or for users with limited access. All the information of the alarms is retrieved using the REST API. So now I'm showing some technical details. And just to note, this technical part is mainly intended for like customers or partners who also want to program or write their own scripts. If you are just interested in using our provided use case, our provided script, it's no problem. You can ignore the technical part. You also can just use what you provide. It's important to note that all scripts, that all discovery files and slides, including screenshots of all what I'm presenting, will be included in the handout material. So you will get, at the end of the webinar, you will get all materials that you can directly run what I have shown in your own environment. Okay, to get all open alarms, we use just the REST call. You can see it. You can see the URL. It's just REST events open alarms. It's documented, and we have a quite detailed documentation about the REST interface. I execute it, and what you can see here is the XML output. You can see here alarms, or open alarms in fact. They have root causes, some have symptoms. I want to go to some example which also has some symptoms. Let's scroll down a little bit. Oh, let's search for it. Okay. So I want to show you one example I prepared. Okay, we take this one. You see here the root cause of this device, octa-core. And the symptoms here is octa-core storage K, storage J, and so on. You see also information like the severity, its major, the state, and very important, you see all the tags. What we call tag here are in fact our categories. And in later versions, when we have the tagging, that will be the real tags. With tagging, you will have an unlimited number of tags you can configure. With our category system, it's a 7 release of StableNet, you have our 15 categories. Sorry. And you see here like we have a type which is availability. That means that's the ping monitors the availability of the device. It's important to know because we will filter on these tags for our example, but I first want to show you how this correlates to the open alarms shown here. We scroll down to the device called octa-core. Okay, here this, in fact, this is an acknowledged alarm. And we see here, let's see, scroll down a little bit. Here we see like the K, C, Q, J labels, the free space, and that information we can see here, that alarm information is also visible in the REST interface. And you can also see here that's acknowledged here, acknowledged user ID 1, as user ID 1 is Infosim. If it's not acknowledged, this field is missing or 0. So you see here that's an acknowledged alarm, this example. Okay, now let's check what are the parameters of this monitoring. And the most important one is the alarm age. So I will change this to 1 hour. That means if an alarm is open, that means without notice, without action on it, for more than 1 hour, we escalate this alarm. That value you can configure in this script. You can also configure if we ignore acknowledged alarms or not. If normally we ignore them, that means if an alarm is acknowledged, we don't escalate it because it's been worked on. And then you can also select if the filters are also working on the symptoms or only on the root cause. In my example, I don't want to get alarms for monitors which have the name job in the name of the monitor, because that are alarms for my other use case examples and I don't want to interfere with them. And we also don't want to escalate escalations. So we filter for type alarm escalation inverted. That means we don't escalate further escalate alarms. That might make sense. For example, if you have several levels of escalation. So you have the first escalation to the team leader, manager of the NOC, and you have a second escalation after 1 day, for example, to the C-level management or CEO of the company. So you can define levels of escalations here. Okay, let's execute the script. And you see here in the lower part the output. We see here now statistics of open alarms and escalated alarms. This output depends on the filters we have defined. And you see in the upper part how that filters are applied on the shown open alarms. On the open alarms returned by the REST interface. And if you scroll down, we see here something new. That was not published before by Infosim. That's our DRG for script interface. If you look here, for example, this line, I hope you can see it. It starts with a percentage sign and a 8. That means this is an DRG entry, and it will create a DRG monitor for switch intern 2 device config status and for the 8th output value. So if we count here 2, 4, 6, 8, it's minor alarm, and this will create a DRG monitor for the minor alarm monitor, because that device status has a minor alarm. This will be escalated. Okay, let's look how this creates, or how does it look in the measurement tree. So now you can see these are also escalated alarms. And we have no critical alarm at the moment, no escalate, and in fact we have no critical alarm at all. But we have a number of major alarms which are escalated because they are too long open and nobody cares. Because that's my test system used for the webinar, nobody really cares about these alarms and they are not worked, so they will all escalate time over time. So I want to show you how we can get a new alarm here. I will just use the Ixia device here. This is a device which is working. I just invert the monitor, and that means this will go to alarm. It will be in critical alarm because it has really critical, so we will get a critical alarm. And let's check here what we have. So, okay. This must be 1 hour because we want to first get an alarm which is not escalate, and when the alarm exceeds the escalation time, we will get a new escalated alarm. So now it takes some time. We have to wait a little bit. And at the same time we can, for example, acknowledge one alarm here, which will then be removed from the escalated alarms when it has been processed. I acknowledge the AKTP monitor, and let's need to jump back in the view here. When the script is executed again, we will see here first a critical alarm, and then, because I acknowledged one of the alarms, it will be removed from the alarm escalation. This Open Alarm Escalation script is also scheduled in a normal interval, so it depends, so we have to wait a little bit, and usually it's sufficient to configure it like for 5 minutes. Normally makes sense. It depends on your escalation intervals, but they are mainly 1 hour, 8 hours, or 1 day, or even greater. So now what you can see here now, we don't have a critical alarm escalation. We have a critical alarm, but it's not escalated because it's a new alarm. It's just occurred. The other alarm I acknowledge is not open anymore. It's now being handled, so it's not escalated and is turned to green. I now want to also escalate this alarm. I do it simply by changing here the interval, the maximum age, to 1 second. And 1 second, of course, has already passed here. So this will create now also an alarm, critical alarm escalation for this XCR demo device. So in the meantime, I can show you the discovery. So I will keep this open, which generates all this alarm script in this measurement tree. So I put it here. In the background we will see the update of the alarm, and here you can see the script. That's a discovery script, XML, Open Alarm. You see the tree structure, and here just contains of a script element with the name of the script and the arguments which are used also in the GUI. That 27 lines of XML code is everything required to create this Open Alarm Escalation. So in the meantime, it now has been processed. Our alarm has been escalated because it's now open more than 1 second, which is now my artificial threshold for the demo. And you see now a new entry for XCR demo. So it worked, and that was my first use case, alarm escalation. Now I'm coming to the next use case I want to show. It's automated monitoring of StableNet jobs. I think you all know our job system. Jobs are used for everything, everywhere for automation. They can be scheduled, they execute backups, policy checks, config, discover, and so on. And they all have a result and a status, like a job. A job has no single result, but a multiple result. So a job can fail on 2 devices and be successful on 100 other devices. Or it can have 3 minor violations, policy violation, and 1 major, and 1 execution failure or something. So to monitor the jobs, we also want a script and a nice looking tree in the measurement tree, where we can see all the results of the jobs and see where are policy violations, or where a job completely fails, or where the execution failure, where a discovery job fails, for example. And you also can use the execution time. That means you can add also a monitor which creates an alarm if a job has not been executed for whatever reasons. For example, you want a nightly discovery to run every day, and you can configure a threshold like for 3 days. And if the job is not running for 2 days in a row for whatever reason, you get an alarm because the last execution of the job is too old. So you can really monitor all our jobs. So let's switch back to the live demo again. So we close this and go to job status. Briefly showing the parameters. You always have the rest, the login parameters, and here you have 3 job filters. And these filters, of course, you can select which jobs are relevant for you to monitor. And to explain how the job system works, I first have to show you something about our job results. I open a policy, SNMP policy check job, and you see here this job has 171 results, 154 successful, and 17 violations. And we are monitoring these numbers. We have the job execution, and we monitor all the executions in the measurement interval. And this job has the ID 1014. You need to remember, because now we want to look in the REST details, how the REST data looks like for this job. So first of all, we need to get a list of all jobs. That's just REST called jobs list. Then we get a list of all jobs in the system, like connectivity update. You see the names here, NDB change. You see also the type of job, like here it's device config job or policy job. We are looking for the job 114. That's our SNMP policy job we just saw. And we want to monitor this job. And then we need to get the results of that job, like in the GUI. To retrieve that data, we use the REST interface again and get the job results sorry, for the job with the ID 1014. And here you can see the list of job results. You see the failure count. You see we have 17 violations. We have 154 success count. And when we switch back to our GUI, that are exactly the same numbers. That's how our script works. It uses this information to retrieve the data required for monitoring. So, and let's just execute the script to see how it works technically. You see in the lower part some statistics. So we have 20 jobs globally, in total, and we have 15 jobs which have successful entries. So it doesn't mean that 15 jobs have been successful, because there's no definition if a job is successful. A job has always multiple results. So 15 jobs have at least one successful result, 8 jobs have at least one real failure, technical failure, and 2 jobs have really policy violations. And if you look on the upper part, we see the lines. There's a job ID included. These are the lines for our external measurements. So we create for each job a single external measurement, and this script provides the information for that external measurements. You see here the numbers. These are correspond to like policy, major, minor violation, and so on. We will show this later in the job more easily. What is important, we also use DRG here for the failed job count, for example. We have here %2, and we have several jobs which have failed, have failures in the job execution. You see the Cisco devices 1, Cisco device 3, XIA backup, and so on. This is the DRG for scripts interface again. And if we now turn to the tree, we see exactly here the failed backup jobs, devices 1 to 3, XIA backup, and that lines create these DRG monitors. We see also some jobs where I tested from the webinar in the morning, which are green now. And that is the summary information. You can see here easily which jobs have failures and which jobs have policy violations. And to make it more nice, we also added external measurements here in the job tree. We have the type of jobs, which correspond to our structure here, like policy checks, we have 2, discovery, we have 7, I think, and you see the same structure here. And if you open like a policy job, like this one here, you see it has failed policy checks, it has no execution failure. If you look like in the VoIP reboot job, or the weekly VoIP reboots, there are 2, single and weekly, this job has had execution failures. And now you're probably interested how you create all this tree structure, and you might think that could be difficult, but in fact it's just 27 lines of XML or something. Let's look. It's not 27, it's 32 or something lines. And you see here 2 parts in the config. The first part is called external script. That uses our example script in the so-called discovery mode. You provide the same arguments here and below, and here it creates this tree with jobs, backups, everything is created with this number of XML lines. And the second part is the script itself. This script measurement is created. This measurement provides all the information, all the KPIs for this whole tree, and which is created with these lines. So this 2 blocks of very easy code creates the whole tree and all that information. And the best thing is you get all these examples in our collateral of the webinar at the end of the webinar. Okay, that was my second example use case. And now one more thing, one more additional, which was not in the agenda, because that's some surprise. That's one use case. I was often asked if we can do something like that, if we can just add a monitor below each device showing the backup state, the policy violations or vulnerabilities in some way. And then I think, yeah, I could do this in an example in a webinar perhaps, and then I did it. And now I show you the use case called device compliance monitoring. In fact, this script reads out also REST data about the backup status of devices and our policy or vulnerability jobs and checks, and distributes this information to each device. And it creates a compliance folder and a compliance external measurement which shows like the last backup state. That means did the last backup work or not. And even more important, you can configure a threshold like typically 1 week or something, one day. That means if there was the backup must be up to date or newer than 1 week or 1 day. And if not, you get an alarm because the backup of that device is not working anymore. And usually in a big environment, in a large telco or enterprise environment, backups may fail because the connectivity is not working to the device one day, or it was blocked for other configuration change or maintenance. So you have daily backups and configure an alarm like if the backup is not working for 7 days. And of course, you're also interested not only if the device has a backup, but also if the device has any vulnerability issues or policy violations of your in-house company compliance or policy, or any documented vulnerabilities, which you can also get as from Infosim as a contract where you get all updates of like Cisco, Juniper vulnerabilities. And let's now see how this works in live. Okay, so we close this one, that one, and go to the device status monitoring. Here's also one single script, and the parameters are nearly the same as the job status script. One addition is a check interval. That is the allowed range for checking for device backups, and it technically it counts the number of backups in that interval in the last week in this example. If there was at least one backup, we think it's fine. If there was no backup at all, then we create an error. And it's important to know that doesn't mean there must be a change in the configuration. When we check for backups, we compare if the config really has changed. If yes, we stored a new version, our revision system of backups. If not, we update the timestamp. And that check interval, of course, belongs to the timestamp. We check if there was a backup, the device was checked, and our backup is current, is up to date, and it has a timestamp in the last week. If not, we create an alarm. Okay, let's execute the script, how it works. And you see here now also external measurements. If you are familiar, you notice on the syntax, that's the device ID, and the numbers indicate the time of the last backup. Like these numbers here, 82,000 seconds internally is around 1 day, and also include number about policy violations. Okay, so let's close this. And this script, of course, has some overall statistics, which you also can plot about our device, how many devices with backups you have, how many violations globally you have. In our test setup, there's not much change. In a real-life scenario, you would see real graphs, really curvy graphs. But the most important thing now, I want to show you now, is the distribution to the devices in the measurement tree. So now let's look up some devices. Go to backbone. Start with that's our voice system or telephone system. We have a compliance folder. We have external measurement, and it says we have a marginal policy violation. But the backup is good. We have backups of this device, and the backup is good. We can look how the curve looks like here. That's not so interesting, but let's jump to the config of the device to verify if the information shown is correct. So here we see the last backup of our device was midnight today, so that's up to date, no problem. If I open it, I will see we have here one marginal violation of a SNMP public check. That means, yes, our device has a current backup, that's fine, but it fails a policy check of SNMP. Of course, our devices for test have public community, which is fine, but for my examples, this causes a marginal violation. Let's look to another device. For example, this switch of us. This switch is completely fine because it has a backup, it has no SNMP with public configured, so it's completely fine. And let's check like this one. This has a major compliance issue, and if we look, it has no backups for some reason. And even the backup which is existing has policy violations. Let's check what's wrong with this device. Sorry, I want to jump to the configuration, of course. It's here below. Here. And we see, oh, the backup of this device is from last year, from summer of last year, so it's quite old. It's not according to our compliance rules. So this is really a problem. I have to check why we can't back up this device. Perhaps someone changed the credentials or something's not working. And it's important to note that all this compliance folder, this external measurement for every device which has backups is done automatically. You don't need to configure anything. You just need to use our provided example scripts and discovery files. And when we look on the discovery file for this, it's similar like the, sorry, I clicked wrong. It's very similar to the job status monitoring. It has a part which creates this part here, creates all the folder and measurement below each device. And this part just adds one script measurement which distributes all the information. And that's very neat. With 30 lines of XML and one script, you get a complete compliance status for all your devices integrated in your alarm management, fault management. That's really neat. Okay, that was my last use case. I have some short conclusion. And all the examples which I've shown use our standard interfaces, mostly our REST API and some other like DRG or scripts. This device compliance, which many customers ask for, is available. Could have been done also before by some partner using our interfaces, for example. And I also showed something completely new, or what is new for the public, for the audience, is our DRG option for business process modules or for scripts. Some notes for the handouts which we provide. I tested it with 7.5.3, that's the current version. The interface works with any 7.5 version. And the upcoming 7.5.4 version will include some enhancements in the REST, some small enhancements. At the moment, what I've shown, you can get the list of all job results, for example, but you cannot provide an attribute like to say I only want the last result or the result of last week. If you can, that is included in the next version, which means you don't need to transfer less data, but the script itself will also work with the older versions. And the license required for the different examples is shown here. Like you need DRG for some, you need the REST interfaces for all the scripts. And what's also important to note that these scripts will be in the standard shipment starting from the next version. So starting from 7.5.4, it will be available in the standard installation. And for you, the audience joining today, you will get everything in the handouts right after the webinar. And that was my last slide. I give over to Dietmar for Q&A and the other things. Dietmar?
Thank you, Marius. Well, the fun thing with all your webinars you're holding, Marius, is that they really keep you on your toes when you are the moderator, because you always generate a lot of questions. So, but before we dive into the Q&A, let me just give you a couple of pointers on the handouts. I've uploaded 2 PDFs already to our handout section. One of the PDF is, as Marius mentioned, a pretty much extended version of the slides we've used today. So they include all number of detailed screenshots, number of commented screenshots, shots that will help you understand the use cases that Marius presented. And then also we've added the new version of an article we've published in the Intercoms magazine. The next issue is, don't think it's officially out yet, should be available next week, but it is available for download in the handout section right now. And in just a few seconds, namely now, I have posted a download link in the chat. This will direct you to a zip file that contains all of the StableNet scripts Marius has been using. As he's mentioned, those scripts will be part of the StableNet distribution version 7.5.4 that will be available soon. So this is all I have about the handouts. Now diving into the question, actually just what I just said, we have actually a number of questions that people would like to know when the version 7.5.4, which is going to be the next LTS, is going to be available. And Marius, I know you have an answer for that one.
Yeah, my typical answer is that it's available when it's finished, but in fact for this version we have now a fixed date. It's a next LTS service release called 7.5.4, and the official release date is Monday, the 9th of May, so in 1.5 weeks or something.
Okay, so May 9th, that's when we have 7.5.4 out there for you to download. Another question was actually something that I've had twice or three times, coming from our audience, coming from an audience member that says he has already registered the DRG feature, and he is wondering if he will have to invest some more funds in buying that new functionality you've mentioned, or if that is included.
No, that feature is included. If you have the DRG module, you can right away use that DRG in scripts. Technically it's implemented at least in 7.5.3, could work in 7.5.2, but officially it's in 7.5.3, and it's, if you have the DRG module license, you can right away use it.
Okay, guess that answers that question. Now we're coming to the more challenging questions. The compliance functionality you showed. There is one question, one of our attendees would like to know if that functionality can be applied, for instance, to vulnerabilities or the EOX functionality.
For vulnerability, it works right off the box. I can show you little.
Oh, you have that as well? Good, thank you.
Yeah, I can so we can dog and I just create a job because you can see it right away. So we just fired it up. It doesn't take too long. And because the vulnerability job interface also uses the same policy results like here and the device results, so it also creates statistics for devices. Like you can see here, I have our standard vulnerability package included in my demo system, and then you will also see it popping up here or in the job monitoring. So it works right out of the box. I didn't include it in the webinar because already above the time, but it's working out of the box. For end of life works a little bit different because it's based on reports. That was not in the scope of this example, but that could be a topic we can cover in this upcoming hands-on programming, I don't know how it's called, this webinar we announced at the beginning. That could be done. Technically it's very similar, but it was not in the scope of my example today.
Okay, thank you very much.
Now you can see, sorry to interrupt, now you can see it picked up the vulnerability violations. You have now major and minor alarms, additional ones. They are from the vulnerability checks I had. So sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, okay, no problem at all. Okay, well, I have since we've overstepped our time limit by a couple of minutes already, I have one final question that I think is an excellent question. It's actually something that hasn't been asked before, regarding the Open Alarms Escalation use case, but I'm sure that pretty much applies also to the other use cases. Those monitors that are being created next to the Open Alarms, and they're being created automatically, if I understood you correctly, are they somehow being removed automatically at a later time, or is that a manual process?
No, they are removed automatically. That is part of the additional monitors are DRG monitors, and the DRG concept includes that they turn green, for example, when the alarm is fixed, and they are not removed at the beginning to have some time for statistics like SLA reports, but there's a configured time to live in the system, like they can configure time to live for device results, job results, and after this time to live, which is by default I think is 30 days, if this threshold is exceeded, they are removed automatically. So you don't need to remove them manually, you just configure how long you want to have them for statistics purpose, but after that they are removed automatically.
Okay, well, thank you for that. So maybe an additional comment again on the handout material. I've mentioned the 2 PDFs. I hope you have seen the download URL in the chat. If for some reason you cannot get the zip file with the scripts we've been using for this webinar, just drop us a quick email and we're going to send you that file manually. It's not a big file. Also wanted to mention again, Marius has made a couple of references to the partner workshop webinar and the customer workshop webinar. I just posted the dates again in the chat. So just to give you some more info again, it's going to be a 2-hour workshop with our development people. And space is limited to 10 participants, so give us a quick email if you're interested in participating in that, and we'll provide you with some more details and a registration link as soon as they are available. And again, this workshop is not a webinar, it's a workshop. It's tailored to individual questions. So if you're interested in these or somehow related use cases with StableNet, this is the place to be. So we're happy to help you with that. And it is a free workshop, so we don't charge for that. Just let us know if you want to join. There is, of course, more web sessions on other StableNet related topics available. Contact us if you would like to have other sessions with us. And thank you for changing to our resources slide, Marius. You can see at infosim.net we have a resource section, though there is many more resources to download from the various areas. So there is still questions coming in. I'm sorry we cannot answer all of them live in the webinar, but please keep them coming. We're going to leave this session open for a few more minutes anyhow, and we will attend to every single question later after the webinar via email or any other means of communication. So thank you very much, Marius, for that session, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. We will have a recording of this webinar ready and made available to you tomorrow with a quick email. And I guess that's all from us today. So Marius, any final comments from your end?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dietmar, for moderating the webinar. And I hope I achieved my objectives that you, the audience, get some ready-to-use examples, and also that I could encourage our partners or more technical customers to also write their own scripts using our API and providing additional value to their own or their customers.
Okay, well, thank you, Marius. Again, thanks for joining us, and we will send out invites to our next Global Webinar Day, not the workshop, but the next Global Webinar Day, which is going to be May 19th, in about a week and a half from now, so stay tuned for that. And well, again, enjoy the rest of your day, and goodbye.
Yeah, bye.